Hello, everybody. You have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Hello, everybody. Okay, so today here is a little bit of a revision on the walk of Cadaver Dog Brutus. You guys may have watched the first one and everything. So all I wanted to kind of do here is revise it a little bit, because actually things get a little bit more interesting when Cadaver Dog Brutus goes over by Steven's trailer. It gets interesting. It gets a little more complicated, a bit like King Kratz's relationship with the truth. But anyway, the thing is over by Steven's trailer, actually Cadaver Dog Brutus's effectiveness is cut down hugely at that time, because they waited almost like 3 hours until like 6 or 6:30 in the evening, when it had started to like rain, and like slushy rain is how it was kind of being called, and that sort of thing. Well, that kind of conditions cuts down his effectiveness. So, and we're going to see here what she says about his effectiveness in those situations. I went into a deep document dive, went into the transcripts, went into Queso to pull up a couple things for you all to see. Descriptions on the 8th of the fire pit, and what they found and how they found it, and little things from Julie's testimony. A lot of things where I like to point out the fact that I kind of tend to trust what I read in Queso a little bit more than in trial testimony. And the reason why is because when it's in Queso, it's all back when it was fresher in people's minds, before they had any opportunity or cause to be manipulated by a overzealous prosecutor. Because I believe that there's clear evidence that testimony kind of like evolves between the original statements in Queso and trial. So I just point out a few things in this video where why I basically kind of tend to put a little more creed into the statements in Queso. And also, just talking more about, Cadaver Dog Brutus, some more oddities, such as the crime scene tech Ertl, who, said they didn't take any pictures because when they were called, the scene was so badly tampered with basically already. There was really nothing they could do except to provide something that was being asked for, and they were able to provide that, but they couldn't take pictures and everything because they would have just been taking pictures of a big mess, and it wouldn't have represented what it looked like before. There was no systematic. They literally had people with shovels putting it through sifters on, it was just not a very archaeological recovery of the bones, which would have splintered the bones even more, by the way. And I believe they've already been moved once, so to be collected in this way again, they're going to be pretty close to nothing but splinters. And so anyways, so we're going to go into all the reasons why. The other reason why, obviously, is the coroner, the Manitowoc County coroner. I know the state is, or some officials have been coming out saying, well, yeah, she didn't need to be there. They'd already been identified as human bones. She was unnecessary. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me, because why wouldn't you want another set of experienced eyes? Somebody that has actually dealt with a situation like this before, and it's actually their job, thing. Yeah, why wouldn't you? You got every other Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department there on the property that really pretty much shouldn't be, but let the one department come along that has no conflict with Stephen's 1985 case. Oh yeah, no, you can't come in here. No. So, all right, so that's it. Just wanted to let you guys know that this was just going to be a little bit of a revision and a little bit more explanation into just how complicated the situation was over by the trailer, with the dogs and the rain, sleet, and all that stuff. So here we go. Julie Kramer and Brutus did check the vicinity around the crusher as well as the inside of the crusher. Brutus did not react in any way to any material on the crusher. It should be noted that I was advised by Julie Kramer that Brutus is a cadaver dog and will only react to human remains and human blood. Kramer and Brutus, Special Agent Fassbender, Special Agent Hunsader, and from the State of Wisconsin Department of Criminal Investigation, Detective Jacobs, and I did take a route south from the crusher and went along the fence line that Earl Avery had identified as being property between the Avery property and the Redant quarry. The last row of cars on the Avery property did contain the RAV4 that belonged to Teresa Hallback. Julie Kramer and Brutus went ahead of the rest of us, and as Brutus passed by the north side of the RAV4, which had been covered by a blue tarp in order to preserve possible fingerprint evidence, as it appeared to be getting ready to rain, Brutus made an abrupt turn movement and stuffed his head under the tarp. He then came back to his handler, Julie Kramer, and began to bark. Julie Kramer advised us that this was in fact an alert indicating that Brutus had detected either human remains or human blood. Okay, this is court testimony from Julie Kramer, the handler of cadaver dog Brutus. Now, what I would point out here is I've already shown you previously the CASO report in which it clearly says that the investigators were following behind Miss Kramer and Brutus, that Miss Kramer and Brutus were acting on information from Earl Avery that this fence line was the border between the Avery salvage yard and the Redant property, and so that's why they were searching there or whatever. In this testimony, it's like every time she like turns or takes a step, it's like, oh yes, then the investigators asked us to do this, then the investigators asked us to do that, and there's really no indication of that in the CASO report at all. So, once again, I find issue with trial testimony because, as it so often does in this case, it differs kind of greatly from what happens in the very fresh reports that we get with the CASO report. Here we go. This is the way we came in, and I believe it was the car crusher. Yes? The question is yes? Answer. We were asked first to clear that location. What does clear that mean? Take the dog through and determine if he's giving any trained indication of human remains. When Brutus smells what he believes are human remains, he barks. He gives me a bark indicator. So, we did check this car crusher, and we did not get any indicator at the car crusher. Alright, where did you then take Brutus? Then they asked us to proceed through the area of cars that were crushed, right in here, and we did do that. So suddenly she was asked, when it looks like, when in the CASO report, the investigator writing it clearly gives the indication as if they moved off and they just followed. So I find that interesting. But anyways, was there any indication of human remains? He did not give any indicators there. Where did you go then? Then they asked us to clear along this ridgeway here, down there. I need to stop you, Miss Kramer. When you say they, who are you talking about? There were investigators with us, and I don't have names without referring to a report, but several law enforcement investigators that went with Brutus and I. My husband Bob served as my backup. When an officer asks you, generally, or in this case specifically, were they hinting to you or giving you any indication of what it was that they wanted Brutus to look for? No. They are very careful not to do that. Again, here, at this time, on the 5th of November, we had no information to ourselves, other than we were helping with this missing persons case. Okay, so again here, look, small point, but it's, for me, a huge point, really. It's the changing nature of the way that the testimony goes and the way that things are described in the CASO report when it's fresh in everybody's mind. So you saw what happened right there. First, she's saying that she was getting direction. The investigators were telling her what to do. They were telling her to check here, telling her to check there, telling her da-da-da-da-da. Then she's saying that they were very careful not to tell her what to look for and that sort of thing. And it's like, your dog is a human cadaver dog. We know what your dog is looking for. Okay? I don't, bone, blood, the decaying, flesh, human flesh. Because they do go into how they train the dogs and how cadaver dogs, particularly Brutus, was trained in such a way that he will not react to like pig or things like that are close to human but not quite human. So anyway, but that's a side point. The thing is how she's there now saying that, oh, they were careful not to tell us, not to give us any information or this or that or whatever, and yet she's saying that they were giving her direction, telling her check here, check there, check. So for me, it's just kind of something that this is why I prefer to go with the statements I read in queso, because especially anybody in court that's getting examined by King Kratz, King Kratz makes people change their testimony. He makes them change their testimony. Yeah, he'll lie. He'll color it in a way where he's saying he prepares his witnesses. Yeah, he'll put it that way. He prepares them, but preparation is just a cloaking word for bullying people into adjusting their statements, because that is what happens in this case. The statements that happen in queso are so often far beyond, way different by the time they get to trial and they're being testified to. So just wanted to point this small point out because, like I said, it's inconsistent. Either they're giving you direction or they're not giving you direction. You can't have it both ways. So we first checked the car crusher here. We worked up here. Then there was a line of cars up along a ridge. That's actually kind of elevated ridgeway. And they asked us to clear that group of cars next. So, again, it talks about her being asked. No indication of that in queso. And did Brutus do that? Yes. And in that area, Brutus did give a trained indication. It was a vehicle that was underneath some brush, and there was a blue tarp there. And he did indicate. He went to this vehicle quickly. He came back to me and sat and gave his trained indication, which was a bark. I asked him to show me again. He went back to the same vehicle, barked, and returned to me again. Okay, so something of interest here that is very, well, like I said, it's of interest. So when they take Cadaver Dog Brutus and Julie Kramer over by the crusher into the RAV4, this is earlier on in the day. It's like, I think it's around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, basically. Now, there was some clouds forming at that point, but it was still pretty much a sunny day. Not real severe conditions in any way. It was just a kind of a normal day, and those are the optimum conditions for Brutus. The optimum conditions are that kind of a fresh day, a day where there's not a lot of dampness like from rain or anything like that. So it was kind of like a perfect situation at that point. The interesting thing is, instead of going from the RAV4 and going and taking Brutus over by Steven's trailer and garage, where they so obviously believe something happened, they didn't take Brutus over there. They sent Julie Kramer and Brutus back out to the entrance to Avery Road, and they ended up hanging out there for a long time before they finally came back and got her and Brutus. By that time, the clouds had completely, taken the sky over. There was a very sleety rain, like icy rain, kind of slushy rain, kind of falling, which hampers the abilities of Cadaver Dog Brutus. The question to me, and we're going to see this when we're going to get into that in a second, but here's my question as we move into this. Why didn't they take Cadaver Dog Brutus over there earlier? Why did they send Cadaver Dog Brutus back to the entrance of Avery Road with Julie Kramer and leave him there until the clouds actually fully rolled in and it was raining? It was slushy rain falling. Why did they wait till then? Just odd. Everything that's odd with these bones, with the collection of them, everything about them is just odd. And even the way that they're acting in this case with sending, instead of taking in optimal conditions when the dog could really do his work, they end up taking him over to the trailer when the conditions are horrid and terrible, you know, and where it makes it like he has to. She describes it. Julie Kramer describes it as he has to really kind of go and get his nose up in it in those kind of conditions. He has to if he starts to detect it, he has to kind of go and get his nose, like he has to find it and sense it to its source and then get his nose right in it before he can indicate. So it makes it quite a bit more difficult. Waiting and wasting the sunlight and the daylight hours, to me, is a huge indicator that something like I said, under the table is happening. Because like I said, they take Cadaver Dog Brutus over there now at a point where his effectiveness is greatly, cut, down. And like I said, I don't believe those bones are there. So maybe it was on purpose, so that they would have an excuse to explain why Cadaver Dog Brutus didn't find the bones there on the 5th. Because they weren't there yet, in my opinion. So that's the odd thing there that I think is the whole thing about waiting with the Cadaver Dog Brutus before they took him over to Steven's trailer. They waited until it was slushy rain falling and stuff like that. So we'll move into the rest of this here. All right, hello folks. We are here today at the Avery Salvage Yard. If you don't recognize what I'm showing you here, this is where the car crusher used to be. The reason why we're starting here today is because I was recently looking into some things about Cadaver Dog Brutus. Now, the interesting thing here, folks, is Cadaver Dog Brutus was brought to the crusher because they expected to find something there. So they brought Cadaver Dog Brutus over here, expecting that he was going to hit on some blood or something like that. Well, he didn't. He didn't make any signal or indication that there was anything wrong with the crusher at all. Then the interesting thing about the report, folks, now I'm going to show you this way a little bit here. Off over in that direction is where the RAV4 was. You cannot see the location where the RAV4 was parked from here right now because there's been a lot of tree growth and a lot of stuff that has grown since then. But it is a fair distance away, and I'm going to walk to it and show you where the spot was. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because when they brought Cadaver Dog Brutus to the crusher, he didn't hit on anything, right? You didn't really notice anything. Then Cadaver Dog Brutus and his handler started moving in the direction of the RAV4, and the other officers basically followed. And I have the reports here, and I'll show them to you in the video. But they started moving towards the RAV4, and like I said, Cadaver Dog Brutus and his handler were leading the way. As soon as, and what happens is they lead the way and they get over to by where the RAV4 is. And the moment that Cadaver Dog Brutus gets close to the RAV4, his head shoots underneath the tarp. And he is hitting on the RAV4. He's, hitting on the blood, possibly in the back cargo area. He is hitting possibly even on the blood that's on the outside out of the tailgate. Which would be amazing. Quite frankly, it'd be quite an amazing feat for Cadaver Dog Brutus, because when you think about it, that blood on the tailgate on the outside was, just a couple drops, and Sherry Culhane wasn't even able to get a full DNA profile from it. So, you see how long we've been walking here, folks, right? This is how far away Cadaver Dog Brutus was, and he came over here and he hit on this RAV4. It's quite a distance away, and he comes over and he almost goes pretty much straight to it. So here's where the RAV4 was, folks. This is the spot. If we look back, you're facing towards where the crusher is right now. You can't see that location because this stuff has grown over since then. But it's a pretty far distance away. And that is what I find interesting. So, we know that the RAV4 was here. We know that Cadaver Dog Brutus came from all the way over by the crusher and almost basically came straight to the RAV4 and hit on it. Now, we're going to move over to where Steven's trailer is, and I'm going to show you something else that happened with Cadaver Dog Brutus.
At 17:26 hours, Julie Kramer and her canine Brutus, Lieutenant Sipple of Calumet County Sheriff's Department, and Detective Remaker from Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, Special Agent Husader from DCI, and I proceeded to a burn barrel area near Stephen Avery's residence. It was decided that Julie and Brutus would go through the Stephen Avery residence in an attempt to determine whether Brutus would alert to anything within the dwelling. At 1735 hours, Detective Remaker, Julie Kramer, Brutus, and I did enter the Stephen Avery residence and did exit the residence at 1740 hours. I personally did not observe any alerts from the canine. All right, in this part of the testimony, King Kratz is asking Julie Kramer about the trailer, Stephen's trailer. So he's talking about what's up on the Elmo there. This trailer, she's talking about what's up on the Elmo. This trailer, and he says yes. Or the question is yes. Answer, yes. We did search that building that evening. Who is we? Brutus and I. All right. And were there any alerts that Brutus found from within the building itself? Within that building, we did get one trained alert in the bathroom area. Whoa. Huh? What? The investigation report said there was nothing significant. Interesting. Anyway, okay.
Okay, once again, in the report in Queso, detective says that he didn't see the dog indicate or anything like that when they went to the trailer. Clearly, in Julie Kramer's testimony, she says that Brutus alerted at the bathroom sink. You know, the place where Stephen Avery said he was bleeding and that there would be blood in there. It only corroborates one more point of Stephen's story, really. But beyond that, how does he miss this indication? Dude, it's not like Cadaver Dog Brutus's indicator was a little wink to his handler. You know? How do you miss a dog barking in that small of a space? And it is a very small space. I've seen it. I've looked through the windows. It's not a big space, and you're going to hear a big dog like Brutus bark in there. So, this is the really weird stuff that surrounds the bones that has convinced me that there is something wrong going on with the bones. So, like I said, there you go. That guy clearly says he didn't see Brutus indicate. Julie Kramer says he clearly did indicate on the bathroom sink, which would make sense. So, odd stuff, but so we'll move on down the road here now. Thereafter, Miss Kramer, was Brutus taken outside of the trailer? Yes. The intention had been to work around the perimeter outside of the trailer. Brutus proceeded forward between this garage and this trailer and was extremely agitated. But there was a dog. By this time, it had gotten dark and it was sleeting. There was a dog barking. I leashed Brutus as not to engage the dog. I wasn't aware of how long the dog's chain was or what type of interaction the two dogs would have. Specifically, Miss Kramer, behind the garage, do you see a darkened area on the photo or exhibit number 86? Yes. Could you point to that with your laser pointer, please? Did Brutus ever, or was he ever allowed ever to search behind the garage in that area? Not that evening. The marker that I used was this white tank. He was at the tank and was barking, but beyond the tank, I couldn't tell where the German Shepherd reached. So I called him back to me and leashed him at that time. Now, that particular part of the transcripts, the way that King Kratz asked the questions, he wanted it to come out this way, so that the jury would get a suggestion that Brutus might have been alerting on the bones on the 5th, but Bear was there, right? So that's what I thought is interesting about this, but we're going to find out here definitively that Brutus was not indicating on the bones at all. It's very clear what Brutus was reacting to, and it's kind of funny because his handler tries to say, "Oh, he doesn't do that normally. He never does that." But yet he does in this case. Anyways, so it's kind of funny, I guess, but here we go. We're going to move into the rest of the testimony here. Then what he did is he ran. He was pushing to go this way, and he actually kind of ran back in this direction toward another dog. Now, let me just say something, folks. When she first said up there that she was that when I first read this, of course, that Brutus was going between the trailer and the garage, and that he was severely agitated, I was like, oh, well, maybe he was detecting human remains, possibly. But guess what? When I got to this part here, where once he was put on the leash, he started pulling on the leash and trying to drag her toward another dog. Yeah. So Brutus wasn't reacting to human remains. He was reacting to other dogs at that point.
And I would even argue, because I was at Avery Salvage Yard, I know exactly how close Barb's burn barrel was to the burn pit. It wasn't very far. And who knows if Brutus, when he alerted on the burn barrel, wasn't alerting or wasn't reacting to Bear then as well. I tell you what, it's a real shame that they couldn't get Bear out, or take care of him somehow, humanely, of course, but to remove him, because this everything about this investigation looks silly because they're afraid of Bear. But more than that, Bear was affecting, or was having an effect on the effectiveness of Cadaver Dog Brutus by simply being there. And once Brutus saw Bear, then it looks like Brutus got into the mode where he was just reacting to other dogs, because he clearly starts pulling his handler in the opposite direction toward another dog. So almost thought he would have been, most of us might have thought, oh, maybe he was reacting to human cremains, but I think it shows pretty clearly he was reacting to dogs at that point. Remember, he has to get close in this kind of weather. He has to get really close, because he doesn't detect the things on the wind as well when it's raining and sleeting. So remember that it would have been real difficult for him to detect the bones from the propane barrel. That's the white tank she's talking about. The propane tank that's on the back of Steven's trailer, is in Making a Murder. It's no longer there now. But where that tank was. So that's still pretty close to where Bear was, but the thing is he wasn't close enough to the burn pit. He wasn't getting there where his nose was in it, like she said he needs to be able to detect it, really. And I think it's further punctuated, as I said, when he starts reacting to the other dog. Alright, so this is a video I took at the salvage yard. Now, you'll see right here, this is where the burn pit was, right in this area, right there. Bear was chained up here. The propane tank was right over here, right on there. So you can even see the little slab kind of on the ground there. She's saying that her and Cadaver Dog Brutus came right up through here, right in between the garage and trailer, and that's where they stopped at the propane tank because she saw Bear. And then at that point, he almost pulled her in the other direction here, over this way, and was going after another dog. Okay, so we've established that Cadaver Dog Brutus was reacting to Bear and another dog, not so much what he was there to find. Not what he was trained to do. Probably because the conditions were so bad, he wasn't really picking anything up and saw the dogs and started reacting to them instead of what he was there for. It's understandable. He's a dog, and it's not the optimal conditions for what he does. So it's perfectly understandable for me. So where that leaves us is that we have no clear indication about the bones. And like I said, it's just weird that they sent Julie Kramer and Brutus back to the entrance of Avery Road and waited until the weather just turned completely foul before they took him, Julie and Cadaver Dog Brutus, over to the trailer. And then there's the bit where we have the officer who was going through there and didn't see or get any indication that the dog was indicating on anything. That's baffling to me, dude. Like I said before, Cadaver Dog Brutus, his indication wasn't like a little nod and a wink to Julie. So, I mean, he's a big dog. I'm sure when he barks, it booms. But anyways, you would still hear any dog barking in that small of a space, as I said. So, next thing we're going to move into here, folks, is now I'm going to show you the actual CASO report of what finding the bones was like. Now, keep in mind, I was just telling you about all this slushy rain and whatever that was falling at the time, and that was happening. This was happening on the 5th, Saturday night. So we know, and they say that, and basically that rain went on all weekend, pretty much. All weekend it was raining like that and stuff. So when it comes to the 8th, Sergeant Yost and Sipple both decide, since Bear's gone now, let's go over and have a little look-see over by the back of the garage. Once again, a Manitowoc officer, Yost, leading the way to
evidence. And like I said, the bones are highly suspect. And after I show you this report, I'm going to go into a few of the other reasons why it's suspect, like no photographs. No photographs of whatever they were doing when they collected these bones. Turning away the coroner, the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department coroner, the sole department in Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department that actually didn't have a conflict with Stevens' 1985 case, was turned away by Peterson and some other high-ranking officials. So we'll move into the finding of the bones by Yost and Sipple. All right, everybody. This here is out of CASO, the CASO investigation reports. This is a report written by Lieutenant Sipple. Now, I'm going to point out a few things here. Keep in mind, as I'm reading this, that how much explanation is going into what these officers are saying. For instance, Yost, who is from Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, talking about how he had the idea to go look at the burn area because the German Shepherd was now gone and it may not have been checked thoroughly. Just keep in mind, that's a Manitowoc Sheriff, again, going over to where the bones are, or supposedly are, or were, and taking Lieutenant Sipple with him. And he's I mean, isn't it funny how because of Bear, they still had this one little area of the property that they could conceivably explain why they hadn't found anything there, and then suddenly Teresa's bones appear there, and that's not all that's funny about it. You're going to listen to the way that Sipple describes the ground, the pit ground, the way that the earth is and everything, and we'll see if you guys think there's anything odd. But here we go. Shortly after 1340 hours on Tuesday, 11/8/05, I had the opportunity to speak with Sergeant Yost with the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. Sergeant Yost indicated to me that there had been a large burned area behind the red garage on the Avery property, located in the northwest corner of the property. He felt that this area may not have gotten searched properly based on the fact that there was a large German Shepherd in the immediate area. Okay. I then responded to that location with him, where we took a look at the burn area. Inside the burn area, I observed a small grayish material that appeared to be bone. Sergeant Yost also pointed out a piece located in front of me and to my right, at which time I could tell that the item he was referring to appeared to be bone. He also pointed out a large piece which was directly in front of me and to my right. This bone, from looking at it, appeared to be part of a person's spinal column. In these two items, I could observe from where I was sitting a honeycombing of their center mass. This honeycombing was familiar to me due to the fact that as a child my parents owned a butcher shop, and at times we would burn some of the animal bones that were butchered. And when cleaning out our burn area, I had an opportunity to observe this same type of event happening in those bones, as what I was seeing in the bones within the pit. As we were looking at these particular items, two State of Wisconsin Department of Criminal Investigation (DCI) agents approached our position. One individual I know as Tom Sturdivant, and the other individual is a female agent, and I do not know her name. I informed the agents that we observed what we felt were several pieces of bone. It should also be noted that prior to checking the burn area, I observed that the area had not been disturbed. It appeared that due to the previous heavy rains we had that weekend, through the weekend, that being Saturday night and Sunday morning, where we received approximately an inch plus in rain, okay? There was a crust. So you understand what he's saying there. He's saying that the rain, when it got into this burn pit, it took the ash and the stuff in the burn pit, and when the water was there, it kind of made it all kind of like stick together, like it almost like glue itself together, where it created like this type of a crust, over the fire pit, where the ground just looked like this kind of smooth crust from the rain, right? That's what he's saying here, right? Okay, it gets better. Okay. There was a crust on top of the burn area and of the burn and ash materials. It did not appear as if anybody had previously dug into or moved anything within the pile. Why would he think to say that? Especially when
Yost, a Manitowoc County sheriff, is leading him over here, right? So we know, again, it's a Manitowoc County officer that's leading somebody directly to the evidence, again, right? But then he's over here talking about how it looked completely undisturbed. It looked, this crust had formed from the rains and everything, and it looked completely undisturbed. And I can attest to the fact that nobody disturbed this, and no funny business could be going on here. That's almost the way it sounds when I'm reading this guy right here. It's like he's just trying to say there's no funny business going on here. Well, let's see what else he has to say. The 2 items that we observed were lying directly on top. What? Directly on top of the crust? Okay. That doesn't seem a little bit odd? For 2 bones to be lying directly on top of this crust that would have been formed over the weekend? That's quite interesting. I then moved out of the location and advised the command post that we had possibly found some bones. Sergeant Yost remained back with the 2 DCI agents. When we located the Wisconsin State Crime Lab, they later returned to the location to excavate it. I, Lieutenant Sipple, went off duty at approximately 1500 hours. Sorry. Wasn't Uyghur and everybody using like their firemen, like some qualification they had as arson inspectors or something like that, and they were trumping that up into being qualified to excavate the burn pit? I mean, that's what I remember. I didn't know that the Wisconsin State Crime Lab was involved at all. I know that crime scene tech Ertl certainly felt slighted, like he was excluded from this. But I just found that interesting. He's saying that they located the Wisconsin State Crime Lab and the crime lab did it.
All right. So when it comes down to it, we number one have the established prowess of Cadaver Dog Brutus in optimum conditions, which would be conditions like when they took him over by the car crusher and over by the RAV4. Those were good conditions. Nice clear day, not a lot of snow and wetness. It was he's able to detect things from further away on the wind, and those were optimum conditions, right? Then we have, after that, we have them sending Cadaver Dog Brutus and his handler, Julie Kramer, back to the entrance at Avery Road for another 3 hours, three or so hours. Then, once it was nice and terrible outside with lots of freezing rain or slushy rain and that type of stuff falling, then they decide, oh, you know what, let's take him over by the trailer. Okay, odd, bizarre, doesn't make any sense. Especially when they obviously could have seen. There's mention in the transcripts, in the testimony, that they could see the clouds were rolling in at the point when they were looking at the crusher and the RAV4. But it was still a nice clear day at that point. So waiting 3 hours until it got really crappy, yeah, mind-boggling. I don't know why they would do that. So, like I said, clearly established prowess of Cadaver Dog Brutus's ability in good conditions. Taking him over to the trailer in horrible conditions. King Kratz kind of in the way that he leads Julie Kramer with the questions, I feel tries to insinuate to the jury that Cadaver Dog Brutus would have been alerting on the bones possibly, right? Now, whatever, it's a small point, but still, to me, it seems like that's what he's trying to do. But we see right after that Julie Kramer testifies that Cadaver Dog Brutus was at that point reacting to another dog. He reacted to Bear when he was standing next to the white propane tank in between the trailer and the garage, and then apparently saw like a dog behind him or somewhere in the kind of opposite direction and tried to go after that dog, or tried to, started barking and pulling on his leash going towards that dog, clearly telling us that he was reacting to dogs, not bones. And the interesting thing there, folks, is that instead of, as she takes him on the leash, they take him around over by the Barb's trailer, and that's when he supposedly alerts on one of the burn barrels over there. Well, guess what? I was at Avery Salvage. Okay, I know that I can see the burn barrels at what was Barb's trailer. I can see them from the back of Steven's garage, from where I was taking my video. I could see all these things. They're all right, like in line of sight with each other. So how can I be sure Cadaver Dog Brutus was alerting on the burn barrel on the 5th? How do I know he wasn't just reacting to Bear again, as he was earlier? Then another dog? So, yeah, that's where I'm at with that. I can't even trust that Cadaver Dog Brutus alerted on that burn barrel on the 5th. Then we move on. Okay. So then we got the fact that no pictures are taken when they collect these bones. I mean, it's so funny because Tom Fassbender eventually at one point sends an email to Ertl, the crime scene tech, and asks, how come no pictures were taken? And Ertl's response was, well, we don't take pictures of crime scenes that have been obviously tampered with. That means by the time they called their lead crime scene tech over to these bones, that it was already such a mess that he was like, there's nothing, all he could do was just provide some equipment that they were asking for, or some tools or something like that, right? And that's it. He wasn't about to take any pictures because it had been quite obviously disturbed a lot. So why no pictures? Why did nobody think pictures would be necessary? To my mind, the only reason why people might think that no pictures would be necessary is that they would be talking themselves into believing that nobody will care. Like they're just, talking themselves into, oh, nobody will really question it. Nobody will really question it. But the fact of the matter is, it's damn odd. Why wouldn't you have taken pictures of the bones the way that they lie in the fire pit? Why wouldn't you have done a grid excavation like what usually happens? Especially when you think about the price tag that was spent to prosecute Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey by the state of Wisconsin. Why wasn't there a grid pickup of the bones? They spared no expense to convict Stephen Avery. Why? See, this is what's so weird about the bones, is why the heck did everything go the way it went? There's something here that we don't know for sure. Anyways, I mean, I think I know what's going on, but we don't know absolutely for sure here. But there's definitely something wrong. Then we have the coroner. Okay, she hears about the bones being found. She shows up at Avery Salvage. She is turned away by Sheriff Peterson and 2 other high-ranking public officials. Turned away. Okay, this doesn't make any sense. They have recently offered this explanation for it that doesn't explain a thing. It just raises more questions. So they're just trying. So now they've come to the point where they're saying, "Oh, well, we didn't need her. Somebody had already identified that they were human bones, so she was unnecessary. We didn't need her there." Okay. What's it going to hurt? What's it going to hurt to have one more set of eyes, experienced eyes, who are experienced with dealing with this type of thing? What's it going to hurt to have one more set of experienced eyes there? The only thing I can think is that what would be hurt is she might notice something they don't want her to notice. Because the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department's coroner was literally the sole department, the sole section of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department that didn't have a conflict with Stephen's 1985 case. Literally the only one. And yet they are turning her away. So this is odd. Okay? You have the burn barrel 4, which is cleared at Calumet County Sheriff's Office, then is put on a truck and sent back to Avery Salvage. And at that point in time, Ertl and his team are called away from the burn barrels that they're sifting. Okay, which they happen to be on burn barrel 2 when they're called away, which is where the bones were found. Okay? They're called away from that burn barrel. Burn barrel 4, which had been cleared, was put back on a truck and goes back to Avery Salvage on the 7th. Then, the morning of the 8th, King Kratz is quick to ask a deputy to bring it back to Calumet County's long-term storage. Burn barrel just went over to spend the night over at the Averys, over at Avery Salvage. He just went to go spend the night over there. It was a sleepover. for burn barrel. Yeah, it's fun. It's good fun. Anyway, so these are the weird things that happen around these bones that are not explained and are extremely odd, and that this is why I personally believe that these bones were burned somewhere else. One other reason why I believe that, and this is the kicker. All of these people that report seeing a fire behind Avery's garage, Redant, Taddock, whoever else you want to find, Brendan, okay, all these reports, right, say that there was a fire there, okay, right? Not one single account of there being a horrible stench, as there would be. There would be a very, very distinct smell that comes from burning a human body, and yet nobody reports it. But do you know where we do? Do you know where we do hear reports of a very vile smelling fire? 4.5 miles north, up on Xander Road, next door to a gentleman. Well, at the time, it was next door to a gentleman named Paul Metz. That is the only place where I have a report of a fire, a large one, and a vile smell. So, once again, all of these reasons together, everything, all of it, all accumulate for me and tell me that these bones, we don't have the full story on them. We do not have the full story on them. We're probably not likely to ever have it given to us. So, hopefully, if we ever do find out for sure what was going on with these bones, that would be a good thing. Because right now, you cannot trust anything that I personally can't trust anything I see from the investigators regarding these bones, because everything is so odd. They're just the way that they're collected, the way that they're, sifted, the way that, it's just a lot of just odd things. And that is, like I said, all these things together, they're not, when you start to get this many things together that look odd, there's a reason why. So, I'm going to go ahead and stop it there, folks. Hope it was fun for you. Hope it was informative. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.